Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday, May 5th, 2014.
I'm Julie Robenheimer.
I'm Michael Agello.
And I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I am Eklund, and you are listening and watching the Hockeybuzzcast on Hockeybuzzcast.com. Perhaps this might even be live. I am not so sure, but it might be live. We're trying something out, so we'll let you know if you can join us live. But if we're letting you know, how would you possibly know if we didn't already? Anyway, all right. We'll leave it there. Happy Monday, kids. So first of all, we want to introduce to you the woman who gets paid 20 times more than we do, Julie Robenheimer, star and screen of everything. Julie, you've been doing a great job on the NHL Network. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. No, it's been fun to watch, and it's really it's exciting to see one of our own make it break out.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully, you guys are enjoying the post-game updates, and hopefully I can keep giving them to you, so we'll see.
No, it's good stuff. Good stuff. We really love it. We really love it. Way to go.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sure thing. All right, so let's get to it. This weekend, we're going to kind of do an overview because we haven't talked since we've had 3 days of games, so we can sort of do an overview of these series, I think, at this point. Let's start with LA Anaheim, because this was, in my opinion, is really topping out as far as the excitement value goes. And we're at what? We're only at 1 game, right? Is that right?
Yep, game 1.
Right, really. I was thinking to myself, wait a second, yeah, I didn't miss the game there somehow.
Overtime.
Right,
game 1. I will tell you a funny story though, because I was in the NHL Studios control room watching this game, and we were all talking about how great a day it was. We had the afternoon game, and then we had like 3 hours off. We went out to a nice dinner, had some barbecue and some Thai food, which is a really weird combination, but it's when in New York, that's what you do. So it was very strange, and we were like, wow, this is going like really well, and we had an interesting storyline, and then with 0.7 seconds to go, the Kings score and tie it up. And I wish, like nothing else, that there was a little camera in the corner, because the entire control room was like, no!
Yeah, I always think about that, that's funny.
We were all so excited about the possibility of being done by like 11 o'clock at night, and instead we were there till almost 1:30, so a little bit different.
Yeah, what a great play by Mike Richards, too, by the way. Just like, he's been invisible, Josh, the whole series, or even the whole playoffs, maybe some might say the whole season. and Josh, that comes up there with just, he takes the shot, right, and the shot goes in, gets blocked, and then goes into the corner, and like a lightning bolt, Richards explodes. He's not a guy who would call fast, but his acceleration to get to that puck after the block shot and then get the puck in front, pretty amazing.
Well, I'm kind of having flashbacks to the 2011-2012 Stanley Cup playoffs with the LA Kings. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they lost the first couple of games before they were awoken.
Yeah.
Right now they could be the hottest team in the playoffs. 5 wins in a row after going down 0-3 to the San Jose Sharks. It seems like the Sharks woke these guys up, and they're playing the kind of playoff hockey that Stanley Cup winners play. And I really like the way the Kings are playing. I've totally changed my picks because they were, let's be honest, awful. I think it was 1-7 or something like that. But anyway, the LA Kings.
Honest, Josh, they were terrible.
Yes.
The worst picks of any analyst I've seen. Continue.
Oh, thanks, Zach. I feel even better. And now the LA Kings are awake, and you know what? I think they could go all the way they're playing right now, Eck.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. The Ducks are funny because they obviously don't have a goalie really right now that they're counting on. Hiller, no question. That you got to throw some of the blame on that game going overtime on Hiller, Mike. That goal at the end especially. That's like a beautiful rebound with 7 seconds to go. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, he faced 36 shots, so I didn't think he played badly. You have to give credit, first of all, Jonathan Quick. He's been the main reason why the Kings have turned it around ever since Game 4 of the LA San Jose series. He's played like Jonathan Quick. Anaheim was full marks for the 2-1 lead. But LA really was buzzing around the net the last I'd say 2-3 minutes of that third period, and they finally got the goal. And on the game winner, Kopitar made a great play to Gaborik, and Gaborik, they get him at the trade deadline for basically a song, and he's been really important for them in terms of an alternate or a secondary scoring source in the playoffs. So right now, I mean, they're on a roll. They're getting contributions from Doughty and Quick, and if they continue to do this, I think they're going to run into a brick wall when it comes to the Blackhawks in the Western Conference Final if they do get by the Ducks. But right now they are on a roll and 5 in a row, so more power to them.
Yeah, I mean, let's just face facts here. That they are. I think it's obvious that Chicago and LA is destined for another really good conference final battle that we've seen before. Maybe some would argue the Stanley Cup final. These might be the two best teams. I'm not in there yet, but we'll see. And obviously as we look at Montreal and Boston, the other team that those arguing people that I just spoke of would talk about would be Boston, and they've looked average. They came out, Julie, with a big come from behind needed victory in Game 2, but this has been anything but impressive to me.
I'll agree. It's one of those things where Montreal, we talk about teams getting in other teams' heads, and Montreal has been very, very successful at the TD Garden, and they kind of come into it with a certain swagger. And for whatever reason, whenever the Montreal Canadiens come to the Garden, the Bruins let them play their game, and then they have to react to it. And instead, what we saw in the third period of the game on Saturday was the Bruins came out, only in the third period though, fortunately they had enough time, is they came out and they dictated the play.
Yeah.
They forced their will and made Montreal react. And once that happened, the floodgates literally opened, and they scored, I think it was 3 goals in like 6.5 minutes, and then they tacked on an empty netter in the final 3 minutes of regulation. So it was one of those things where they just said, all right, enough is enough, playtime's over, this is how we're rolling. And it's unfortunate because I feel like the Bruins had to do that after Game 1 of their first series, and again, it took them to the third period of Game 2 to get that going in this series. So it makes me question, I don't want to say their abilities because I feel they're a very skilled team, but it makes me question what's going on inside their head and why it's taking them so long to, put the pedal to the metal and get things going. That said, it is still very impressive to see in both series how they are able to impose their will with, such emphasis.
Yeah, they are. I'm with you. Both third periods were Boston's in my opinion, but they showed at times. You're watching the game, and it was funny. We're watching Game 1. My wife walks in, and she's just watched the third period, and she's like, "Wow, Boston's way better than Montreal." She follows hockey, but not like to the level, of course, that we all do, or else she'd have a podcast of her own, which she doesn't. Not that I know of, but she basically came in and said, well, Boston's just way better than Montreal. I said, yeah, but look at the score. It was like 3-3. I said, this is not, this team is they can't play against Montreal. Will this change, Mike, tonight in Montreal?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Will this change, Mike, tomorrow in Montreal?
Well, I don't think it'll change. Montreal, and we've said this a couple times, Montreal is an annoying team to play against. They use that annoyance factor to throw Boston off of their game. Brendan Gallagher has that smile on his face that everybody wants to punch off. They just, you've got PK Subban, who's an excellent player, but he gets under the skin of the opposition. Same with Pacioretty. You could see guys like Jarome McGinley, who is a composed veteran player, losing his cool in Game 2. Now, Boston in Game 1, they were composed relatively during regulation. They took 2 penalties in overtime, and that cost them the game. In Game 2, they were pretty much undisciplined the first 2 periods, and apparently Claude Julien told them to quit it in between the second and the third period, and as Julie said, they scored 4 goals in 9 minutes, and basically gave Montreal fans a taste of what Toronto got last year in Game 7. So I think this is going to go 7 games. I think this will go in waves. Montreal will annoy them. Boston will regain their composure. It's going to be like this. It's going to be emotional. You got the coaches going at each other in the media.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. I can't wait for Game 3 tomorrow.
It is. It's a fun series. I mean, they're annoying, obviously, as spoken like a true Maple Leafs fan, too, with you guys. Josh, you agree with this annoyance factor?
Oh, agree. 100%. And you know what? I have Montreal and Boston as my number 2 rivalry that I enjoy seeing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think we all know what the number 1 is, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, which didn't happen this year. But, yeah, whenever these two teams get together, the Canadiens and the Boston Bruins, it's always a lot of fun to watch. I mean, you see that both teams don't like each other very much. And you know what? I agree with Mike, and I believe that this series will go 7 games. I think it's going to be back and forth. Boston won the first game, Montreal won the second. Or sorry, Montreal won the first game, Boston won the second game. I think Montreal will win the third game, and maybe Boston wins the fourth game. I think it's going to go back and forth, and obviously both teams are going to change around their lineups like Michel Therrien's doing with the Montreal Canadiens for tomorrow's game. I love watching these two teams face each other.
It's great. And by your theory, Montreal would win the 5th game, correct? Just checking.
Montreal, Boston, Montreal, Boston. Montreal,
Yeah,
yes.
All right.
I'm a little tired. Been busy all weekend. We had the big show on the weekend with all those former NHL players. So
Yeah, that's very cool. We should have talked about that. That would have been a good thing to talk about beforehand. But how did it go?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. It was pretty cool seeing the Hanson brothers were there, and then Theo Fleury was there, and Joe Nieuwendyk was there. And it's funny when you see those guys, and Bret Hart, former WWE star. It's funny because Fleury and Nieuwendyk wanted to go take a picture with the Hanson brothers, but the Hanson brothers wanted to take a picture with Theo Fleury and Joe Nieuwendyk. So
that's
kind
awesome.
of cool seeing both.
So that worked out.
Yeah, they were both in awe of each other. It was
Best
pretty
laid
cool to
plan.
watch. Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
fantastic.
It was a lot of fun. It was long hours, but it was a lot of fun.
No, awesome. So next time we have that, make sure we promote that because that would be good.
Also got to see John Casey. Man, that guy didn't age well. Sorry, John, if you're watching.
Well, John,
Even Bobby Clark said to me, he goes, "Wow, John didn't age well."
Bobby Clark saying someone didn't age well.
Yeah, Bobby Clark looks great. Anyway.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Please.
Save Josh from this.
Thank you.
Smooth
Bobby
trans-
Clark, you know the Bobby Clark story with us? With me, it's really funny. Julie knows this. This is hilarious. Just real quick, is like when Bobby Clark sees me, ever since he first met me, which I would say was like 8 or 9 years ago now. When he was introduced to me, this is who I was. He looked at me and went like that, right? And every time to this day that he sees me, when he passes me in the hall, I'm like, "Hey, Bobby." He's like, he walks by and laughs at me every time. And it's the funniest thing. He just completely he just does not know what to say to me. And I've been on the elevator with him in uncomfortable situations. I'm like, "Hey, that was a great job you did on TSN last night." When he was on TSN, I talked to him and he's like, "Yeah, just nothing." It's a shame. It's really sad. I have not, Anyway, that's another story. We don't have to talk about my Bobby Clark issues now. Julie.
Yes, see?
New York and in Pittsburgh, last night we get Marc-Andre Fleury laying it down. We got a shutout, and this is a hard series to watch for us Flyers fans for sure. But it's it's hard to root for either team type situation.
I forget who I was with. Who was I with? And we were talking about the series, and they said, "Oh, well, who's still in the playoffs?" And I told them, and I was like, "Oh, Pittsburgh and New York," and they're like, "Well, that sucks."
Yeah.
And God, who was I with? But they were like, "I don't want either of those teams to win," Oh, yeah. I know what it was. No, it was Chicago, Pittsburgh as well. We were talking about the actual playoffs, how they were going down, and they're like, "Well, if I have to pick someone, we'll pick these, blah blah blah," and then they were also, their final was like, "Well, let's go Pittsburgh and Chicago," and they're like, "Even though I don't want either of those two teams to win, right. So it'll be a shitty I can't even know if we can say that on this, but I just said it. So. But it'll be a crappy, final for me, this person, not me personally, but this person, because they didn't want either team to win. And they're like, well, maybe I just won't watch it. And they're like, hell, maybe I just won't watch any of them. I'm like, well, it sounds like you haven't been watching anything anyway, so what will that change, But it is one of those instances where you're like,
for those of you watching, Julie said shinny. It's a shinny final, which is the problem.
That what it was?
The shinny final, as we all know, is when teams just play up and down hockey. So it's a shinny
and they don't keep
final.
Score.
Right, they don't keep score, right. So I agree with you. It could be a very shinny final, but yes.
But that's what this series is for a lot of Flyers fans living around me.
Josh for a while there.
So, anyways, but at the same time, I feel like it's a very interesting series from a Flyers fan perspective, which is why it's fun. Every now and then I'll have the game on at the gym, and I'll ask for it to be on like the big screen. And usually, people will clap when things are scored, and whatever. And now they just don't know who to yell at, so it's like, oh, you stink, you're terrible. It's funny watching at the gym because like people are like on their exercise machines and they just heckle the TV. It's very
that's the thing. Like my kids are always when every night now. They're falling asleep with playoff hockey on night. So then
that's the best way to fall asleep.
Absolutely. And the first thing that they ask me every night when we sit down, and they learn this as the series go on, but who are we rooting for, Dad? Who are we pulling for in this series? Like who are we pulling for? And we sit down with Pittsburgh and the Rangers, and my daughter says, Dad, we're not rooting for anyone in this series, are we? I said, no, this is Daddy's job this time. We got to watch this series. But yeah, that's pretty much the case. So, but Mike, actually, Josh, if you compose yourself now, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just surprised it wasn't me that dropped the first word. If you know me,
at least I was
this
quoting
podcast.
Someone else. I was just being accurate, okay?
Right.
You said a better word than I probably would have said, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's move on. What were you asking me, Ak?
I asked you about this fudged up series that we're playing.
Yes.
Pittsburgh and the Rangers. What do we got going?
Well, to be honest with you, I have a weird feeling today that I think Crosby's finally going to break out of this slump. We've been talking about it for the whole playoff series, even last year, 12 playoff games without a goal. I think tonight he's going to get off the schneid. I think it's his time. I mean, he played well last game. They obviously had the big 3-0 win, and you know what? I hope he scores today or tonight, so we could stop talking about this, because I'm actually getting sick of hearing about him not scoring at all in the last 12 playoff games.
It's the only fun thing for Flyers fans.
Yeah, I guess so.
Crosby hasn't scored right. I mean, Mike, the Rangers have been pretty good. I mean, it's so far, and it's funny because the Rangers are getting all their scoring from weird places. But Mike, go ahead. What do you?
I mean, they're getting their scoring from, as you say, weird places, but they're not getting it from the power play, which is 0 for 29 over the last few games of the Flyers series and the first 2 games of the Pittsburgh series. I watched the game last night, and I think that was Henrik Lundqvist's best game of the playoffs. He played phenomenal last night and was the only reason that they were in the game. And then once, I think it was Letang scored the opening goal, I mean, they were still in it, but there just didn't seem to be any cohesive offensive attack from the Rangers. I mean, I didn't think Fleury was really challenged that much by the Rangers. You've got the fatigue factor now coming into it. The Rangers go 7 games against the Flyers and now playing, I believe it's the 3rd game in 4 days.
Yeah.
Back at Madison Square Garden because of a scheduling situation with a Billy Joel concert on Thursday. They normally would have waited. It's
only rock and roll to me, Mike. It's only rock and roll.
Yes, I know. Yeah. We didn't start the fire. But no, I think this series is pretty even. I think it's, the Rangers need to get Rick Nash off the schneid. They need to get some secondary scoring. But I think this is going to be a long series, and I predicted the Penguins in 6, but the Rangers have played equal to them that it's possible that they could win the series, but we'll see.
Julie?
Well, I was just going to say, I tweeted about it this morning. I don't know if you saw it, but about the scheduling issue, because there are a lot of particularly New York fans complaining about the fact that, you know, they're playing back-to-back and they didn't get a travel day. And I'm like, first of all, it's a 60-minute flight. Like, this is not grueling travel. So let's just get that out of the way. Second of all, the real problem is that, okay, you give a day for the travel. There are so many concerts at both MSG and at Consol Energy Center that this really was the only way they could have done it. And people are like, well, they should have had back-to-back games on Tuesday, Wednesday instead, just to allow for the travel day. And I'm like, but you still have back-to-backs. Like, you're complaining that you have a back-to-back. So it's either going to be Monday, you know, Sunday, Monday, or it's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, which really isn't that much of a difference. And then one of the Rangers fans he was actually very funny. He said, well, you know, Hank needs a day off. And I'm like, well, had they won Game 6, he would have had 2. So there you go. Yeah. You know, like, it's not, they had the opportunity to have a day off, and they chose not to have it and let the Flyers win. But it's one of those things. So you have the Billy Joel concerts on Friday. They're setting up on Thursday. And then you have Chelsea Handler in Pittsburgh on Saturday. So, you know, like, that threw a wrench in the game plan. And then you go back to MSG, and Lady Gaga's there on Monday, Tuesday. So it was all sorts of nonsense. They couldn't spread out I mean, if they had done it Tuesday, the next game would have had to have been on Saturday, which would have been 3 days off between games 3 and 4, which the NHL was not going to go for. And a lot of people are like, well, blah, blah, blah. And the NHL faced the same issue with the Anaheim-LA series, which is why they didn't start until Saturday. Did they play at night on Saturday? Yeah, Saturday night. So, you know, they were the last team to start, and they're actually technically could be the last team to play. If that series goes 7, we could actually have like 3 nights of non-hockey just for that game 7. So it would stink. Like, as much as, you know, we sit here and say, oh, what a great series, and we'd love to see it go 7. No, I don't, because that means that if that were to happen, every series has to go game 7, or else we face several nights without hockey, which would be really bad for the momentum of the playoffs.
And we'd have to watch baseball.
And I'm off my soapbox.
All right, that was a good soapbox, though. There's your Julie Ran for today.
Or NBA playoffs.
Or NBA playoffs. Oh, man, that's even worse, Josh. Come on now.
Well, we can't watch the Raptors, can we, Josh?
Who? Lord. We have a basketball here?
There's a Toronto. That's Basketball Buzz.
Didn't even know.
Wouldn't buy that domain name if you gave it to me. So here we go. I agree. I mean, these scheduling things are nothing new, because obviously what we run into is these arenas are big businesses, and they've got an empty dates in these buildings are a bad deal. Like, you know, they can't just suddenly get, you know.
Yeah, they can't keep wide open. Right. You know, in middle of April through the middle of June, just to accommodate the possibility of a playoff game. So what they do is they try and block with enough time in between. Yep. The real problem is that, you know, not only do you have that, but you have another team that has their own arena issues that you have to lay over the schedules. Scheduling NHL games is hard stinking work.
It is.
Let me just tell you that, because not only do you have the arena issues that you have to work around, but you also have the broadcasting requests. You know, like we want to have an afternoon game. We want to have a primetime game. We don't want to have this team on a Saturday. We want to have them on a Sunday. We want this and that and blah, 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 blah. And these are your broadcast partners. So from a league standpoint, they do what they can to accommodate their requests so that they have amazing numbers and will want to come back and get better advertising and have a really great, successful partnership together. So there are a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration when these schedules happen. And I guarantee you that the powers that be that are making this schedule for round 3 are already planning the legwork for the if this, then that scenarios. That way, as soon as the round is over, they can announce what the schedule is. So it's not like they're doing this all the night before. They're working on it for weeks in advance.
Exactly, and we've been in those buildings. I've actually been around the schedulers and such, and during the Stanley Cup Finals, even when you have these late night media meals, and I've talked to them about it, and it is a nightmare. It's crazy. I mean, you know, it's like just even get the 4 of us to do a show at 3 o'clock every day. So, you know, you try to get everything together. It's hard. It's a lot of work.
Well, it's more helpful when you have accurate information.
Yes. Is that a dig at me, Julie?
Slightly.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did not mean. This is a funny story. We got to share this story. This is really funny. So I get this. We're gonna do the podcast today at 3. All right, really quick. This is just hilarious. I thought because I'm like, all right. So I get the podcast. I'm gonna read you from my text thing right here. This is really. Okay. I read you my text. Our conversation because we have a text.
Talking in the microphone, Nick.
Okay, sorry. We have a text that goes on every day with us. So I wanted to read you from the text. Thanks for telling me doing that because I appreciate it because I don't like when I do this. So anyway, so we're going through this and I'm saying. I want to do today's show at 3, and that's fine. We do that in the morning, and Mike sends out a thing saying, okay, yeah, we're going to all do it at 3. So I'm going back into my text messaging just to see who's going to come, to see if we want to invite a guest or whatever, and somehow I get to this message of Julie saying, I'm not going to be able to do 3 o'clock. My basement is flooded with water. I'm sorry. I apologize. And I, even though this exact scenario happened last Thursday, my head did not put that together. And I said to Julie, well, it's okay, don't worry about it. Can you do 4? And she's like, well, that doesn't really help me at all. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, fine. That was Julie's voice in my head. That's how it sounds, by the way. Well, that doesn't really help me at all. So I said, okay, fine. So I said, I'm sorry, Jules, don't worry about it. You can just bail yourself out, and we'll see you tomorrow. And Julie's like, I'm not bailing. And I'm like, well, no, wait a second. I meant, the basement. I thought you were, and it turns out, anyway, I'm not a jerk that you would think. I felt really upset that you thought I would just say, well, don't just bail on us.
Well, that's what it felt like you were saying. You're like, don't worry, just bail out, we'll see you tomorrow. And I'm like, why would I be bailing out? Like, I said I could do 4 if it was absolutely necessary. And then you're like, well, your basement. I was like, that message was from last Thursday. I'm really glad you're paying attention.
I was. I just happened to think it happened again, I guess. I don't know.
Well, fortunately, I bought a sump pump, and
Excellent.
The basement is
dry.
And
sorry for that diversion.
Everything's good.
Excellent. Good to know. Sorry for that. That was a little crazy. I apologize, but I just wanted to put it out there that it's difficult scheduling. That's the whole belief.
That is the moral of the story.
Moral of the story is difficult scheduling.
Let's look at the Hockeybuzzcast.
Right. An inside look. That's just for those of you who follow the
And if you need your brakes changed, so like I can do the sump pump. I can change brakes.
She's true. Julie, you installed the sump pump yourself?
Yeah, brake pads.
Nice.
I can do it all.
Wow, that's impressive.
I'm amazing. I don't know if you've gotten the memo, but
I did get that memo, and and I pinned it right over here. It's on the wall. Julie is amazing. It's right there. All right, so let's talk about.
You're feeling a little bit left out right now,
Sorry, Josh. Let's talk about Chicago and Minnesota. Get us back in the realm here. Josh.
Yeah, sorry, I needed a good cry. Yeah, I mean, Chicago Blackhawks, pretty big win the other night. Yeah, I can't do this.
All right, Mike. Josh considers it a big win the other night. I want to think what your thoughts are. Josh had the big win. Josh has gone with a big win angle. Mike, how are you going to go with this one?
Pretty much the same. No, I think Minnesota, if it was possible to lose a series in 3, would to Chicago. And that's not a commentary against against the Minnesota Wild as a quality.
I'm sure they wouldn't take it that way, Mike.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they would, but I'm just saying Chicago has been that dominant. Obviously the Brizgalov factor for Minnesota. Now, he wasn't bad in Game 2. It was a relatively close game, but I just think that Jonathan Toews is playing at the top of his game. You've got Brandon Saad scores 2 goals in Game 2. Corey Crawford is playing phenomenal hockey. At this point, I don't see Minnesota being able to win a game. Now, it's possible when they go back, playing games 3 and 4, they could keep one game close and win. But Chicago is clicking on all 8 cylinders right now. They're going to win this series. It's just a question of how many games, and then they're going to get enough rest to, take on either LA or Anaheim, which I think is going to probably go at least 6 games because those teams are fairly close in terms of talent and their performance level right now. But Chicago, I didn't think it was going to be possible for them to repeat as Stanley Cup champions, but right now everything is going in the right order for them to possibly do it.
No question. Josh?
Well, I was just going to say Minnesota, I guess you could say, if you will, the last Cinderella team in the playoffs right now, the team that a lot of people didn't think would get as far as they have gone. They gave Chicago a bit of a run, but you know what? Like Mike just said, Chicago's going to now take this series. Yeah, I think it was a nice feel-good story with Minnesota. Jealous it didn't happen with Columbus. There's my Columbus reference for this podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Minnesota is now going to be a goner. I think Chicago's going to wrap this series up pretty easily now.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, it's tough. I mean, we haven't gone back to Minnesota yet, Julie, so we still have a chance. Obviously, the series doesn't start till you lose at home.
That is correct.
Thank you.
We'll see. Well, the interesting thing is that Minnesota, not to say that they've necessarily played well at home, but they have managed to win at home.
Oh, they have.
Good.
They've found ways to win. They've found ways to win this year, no question.
I'm hoping that they can at least get one win at home.
Yeah, I think we can.
I don't like any team to be swept at home. That's the only thing I don't like. I don't.
I don't want to watch that much baseball, Like I don't want these series to go long, and I don't want to have to be, watching the.
I don't necessarily want it to go long. I'd be happy if this series ended on like Monday or Tuesday.
Well,
Right.
unless they can pull Don Beaupre, Gump Worsley, or Cesar Maniago.
No. Everybody wants to make this a goaltending issue. This is not necessarily a goaltending issue. This is a team defense, block a stinking shot issue. That is the problem with the Minnesota Wild. They need to figure out how badly they want it and what they're willing to sacrifice to make it happen. And if they sacrifice the body and block more shots and play better team defense, then they will be more successful. But right now, they don't seem to be willing to do that, and it's costing them. They're paying for it.
Josh, you agree with Mike or Julian? Please.
Well, by the way, I was just going to throw out there if there's no hockey on a Monday night, 24 is back.
Tonight.
Happy Jack Bauer Day, by the way.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I kind of dressed like Jack Bauer today. Yes, no, I'm with you on the 24 thing. The 24 thing's awesome. I'm with you there, too. I'm going to be watching for sure. But, yeah, all right, so let's move on. Josh, you have some breaking news, sort of, kind of.
Not really breaking news. I mean, we saw earlier today Kirk Muller was relieved of his coaching duties, along with basically two-thirds of the coaching staff with Todd Lewis. I always say Todd Lewis. Dave Lewis and Todd Lewis is with SiriusXM.
Yeah,
Dave Lewis and John McClain, former coach of the New Jersey Devils, former Devils player.
And Star of Die Hard.
Star
of Die Hard, right.
So now with this act, we now have 5 opening coaching positions. I don't think I've seen anything like this in the last few years, but if you guys follow me on Twitter or see the blogs that I've thrown up, 34 coaching changes in a little over 3 years. A lot of names coming back up to the surface that we haven't heard in a little while. Ron Wilson, I mentioned on the podcast, I believe 2 weeks ago, was interested in getting back into coaching. I know Darren Dreger tweeted earlier today that he's getting some interest from teams. I believe, Eck, you threw out Mike Keenan's name, getting some interest, and especially after winning a championship over in the KHL. There's a lot of other coaching moves. We're still waiting to find out where Barry Trotz is going to go, whether or not he's going to take some time off or not. But Darren Dreger also tweeting out that Shanahan and Nonis will discuss Carlisle's future this week as part of the meetings. No timetable for a decision. I know Mike's waited on bated breath for that one. And Florida, interested in hiring an experienced coach this time, but it's unlikely Talon will decide until after the World Championships. In Carolina, the name I'm hearing, from what I was told this morning, Kevin Dineen.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if you don't see Kevin Dineen as a head coach.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of that organization, obviously, usually part of that organization for years. And, I was about to say, when you say Florida, I mean, they did have an experienced quarterback. An experienced coach in Kevin Dineen. I still think Kevin Dineen got screwed there, I have to say. That's still my opinion. I mean, I really think that there's no reason to get rid of Kevin Dineen last year. It just didn't make any sense. But this does change things. There's 2 things I've noticed about this that I really think are interesting, and I'll let Julie decide whether they are.
Because apparently I'm the determination of interesting.
You are. You are. You find things very interesting. Okay,
do.
so here we go. I'm going to throw this out there. Oh man, I just had to go to your look for a second there. Between Julie's looks like this and Mike and Josh's size of like, we have a great
bad.
show.
I'm the neutral one here. So
Yeah. Mike is the one trying to keep the balance, which is nice.
Yeah. I've laughed so hard today, I've been crying. But go ahead.
Yes, you laugh, you'll cry. That's the story of the Hockeybuzzcast. Anyway, these are my interesting things here. My interesting things are this. First of all, with all these coaches available, does that change the way Toronto looks at their coach? I mean, it has to affect it. I mean, when you have 5 spots and there's not that many. I mean, Mike's shaking his head no, but at the same time, I think that it does play into your thought process. If there's a supply and demand issue here. There aren't that many NHL coaches that can take on a job like the Toronto Maple Leafs. So maybe he keeps his job because of this.
Well, no, then I'll reverse my no to a yes. No, what I'm saying is I think that Carlisle is not getting fired. Right. I have not thought that he was going to get fired for one scintilla, one moment that he is. It doesn't make any sense because right now there is not a coach out there that on the market that I think is better than Randy Carlisle for the Maple Leafs. Now, a lot of Maple Leaf fans will dispute that. Right now, I think the whole situation with Carolina, another name, and Kevin Dineen makes a lot of sense. Former Hartford Whaler, Carolina Hurricane, first Carolina Hurricane team captain. The other name that came out was Ulf Samuelsson, who's I think the assistant coach in New York right now. And he's a possibility.
Going down the list of Whalers, going down the list of old Whalers. Is that what we're doing?
Well, no, but you're talking about
I know.
Yeah, you're talking about the association with Ron Francis, and I think one of the things that popped up when Kirk Muller was let go was his association with Shanahan going back to New Jersey. Now, I think Toronto is looking for somebody who can at least have an equal resume to Randy Carlisle. They have to have somebody to be able to make a big splash. Todd McClellan is one guy, if San Jose lets Todd McClellan go, that has a relationship with Shanahan going back to Detroit as an assistant coach under Mike Babcock. That would make a lot of sense. But from the sense that a lot of people are getting right now, he's not going to get fired unless the owner definitely wants a scapegoat for one of the biggest collapses in NHL history. So if there's not that type of guy out there, I think Carlisle survives this. They probably fire a couple of his assistant coaches, and they'll bring in a new staff and see if they can. There's going to be extensive roster changes in Toronto. There's going to be extensive roster changes in Carolina, and that's why I think this summer is going to be one of the more interesting ones because there are a lot of teams out there, including San Jose, where there's going to be trades and teams willing to shake up those rosters that have been stagnant for a number of years.
Oh, for sure. And we'll talk about Ryan Miller tomorrow, by the way, because I do want to get into that too. But first of all, Julie, was that interesting at that point? I mean, okay. All right. Secondly,
Slightly.
Beyond that interesting thing, Mike's stuff was more interesting than mine. I do agree. Mike had some good points there. Julie agrees with that too, I think. Okay, so Josh, do you think it was interesting?
I was just wondering if you were going to say my stuff was interesting too. So
your stuff is always interesting, Josh. That's a given. We don't have to worry about that. My other point is this. Why are these teams waiting to hire their coaches? I mean, that's the other thing that we wonder about because is this a situation where Dan Bylsma is like on people's lists and they're sitting there waiting to see if he gets fired or not? And even though he's at this point, could very easily be in the conference finals, do you think, Josh, could that be playing into this at all?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are licking their chops, looking at the coaches that could be available. I mean, another name we've heard the last couple of years, or not the last couple of years, but the last year on and off is Joel Quenneville, and how far the Chicago Blackhawks go. Another Whaler, exactly. I think it's going to be, I hate saying this, interesting. But, I mean, to have...
Word of the day.
Yeah, exactly. There could be 6, 7, 8 coaching positions open by the around draft time. I mean, there's going to be a lot of great names available. I think everyone wants to know: is Barry Trotz going to coach? Is he going to take a year off? Ron Wilson's name intrigues me a bit. Could he end up going back to Washington? I know that him and Leosis.
I can't see that happening. I can't see anyone hiring. I'm sorry. I'm not to diss Ron Wilson, but I don't see it.
Well,
I don't see it.
the rumor du jour about Washington right now is that that Ted Leonsis is going to hire Wayne Gretzky to run the hockey operations,
Oh, that'll work.
which
That's
will be a cluster F if you ask me. But
Yeah.
I don't particularly
I
think
think
that'll
that'll
be a
be
good idea.
shinny. That's what I want to say. Because I don't think he belongs there. I don't think that's. I mean, so Julie, that point was interesting, right? What are your thoughts on
That wasn't a point, but that was a very interesting comment.
this? The shinny comment. Okay, no, but what is very interesting, what I've noticed about this whole thing, and I will end on this, is that my gosh, the Hartford Whalers, for a team that doesn't exist anymore and had only a really brief period of time in the NHL.
Okay.
Julie, they don't exist
My
anymore. I
cousin-
promise you.
Here's my sidetrack story of the day. So my cousins grew up outside of Hartford, Connecticut. So they grew up Whaler fans, okay? And one of them actually moved to Carolina. And he used to go to Hurricanes games when he lived there. He now lives in Colorado. But he used to go to Hurricanes games in his Whalers gear. And when they won the Stanley Cup in like 2009, I think it was.
Yep.
Something like that, or 8
7.
maybe. I don't remember. Anyways, it was all congratulations to the Hartford Whalers, Stanley Cup champions. I mean,
I know. I mean, I saw them
in the
down there.
hearts of many.
I was in that series, and I saw people in the building for that Game 7 with Hartford Whalers jerseys on,
Yes.
and they were fired
In
up.
the hearts of many, the Hartford Whalers are still. There we go. The Hartford Whalers are still alive and kicking. They have just taken on the form of the Carolina Hurricanes. Even for his bachelor party, he lived in New York for when he was getting married, and his bachelor party was a New Jersey Devils game in which they played the Carolina Hurricanes, and he and all his buddies were Hartford stuff. So
Wow.
they do live on.
And you know who you can blame for the banning of Brass Bonanza as the goal song for the Hartford Whalers? That would be one Brian Burke.
He doesn't like that.
Really?
He did not like the song.
I didn't know that. That's
He
interesting.
banned the playing of Brass Bonanza as the goal song in Hartford. And honestly, I think that's one of the few things that people still remember about the Hartford Whalers.
It is, and it does always remind me of like the Newlywed theme or something like that, you know. But that's that's neither here nor there.
Yes, like some 70s game show.
It is definitely a 70s game show theme. There's
The
no
joke
question
was
about that.
wild.
It's like, Press Your Luck or something like one of these great
Match
shows.
Game 76, which is actually rather hilarious, and I would not be opposed if that is one of the game shows that they brought back to life. Because it's
Oh yeah,
funny.
for sure.
Yeah, but Gene Rayburn's dead.
Well,
Hey, guys,
Not for
Guys, by the
everyone.
way-
There are people who still believe Gene Rayburn's alive, Mike. And go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
so is Tupac. By the way, I Googled favorite Whalers of all time, and number one on the list, Kevin Dineen.
Yeah, no question. I have a Kevin Dineen jersey right over there. If I had any energy, I would go get it and show it to you. But I have it's a Hartford Whalers jersey with Kevin Dineen on it.
Bring back Bobby Holik. That's what I say.
Mine is Sylvain Turgeon.
Oh man, but this is the thing. I mean, Bobby Holik. I mean, look at this. Look at the amount of players that are coached. Like David Tippett was a Hartford Whaler. He's in the NHL. Joel Quenneville. We're talking. I mean, we're talking about all these ex-Whalers that Kevin Dineen. I mean, goodness
Sean
gracious.
Burke is a goaltending coach.
they live on. I'm telling you.
They do, and if you ever went to the mall there in Hartford where they played, which I saw a couple games there, it was fun. It was a really fun environment, and it's a shame that team left for sure. And that was one of those weird situations, and yet you never hear I mean, there definitely are people who try to bring Hartford back, but it's not going to happen. And Boston, I think, has a little bit to say over that too, because they are really kind of the same market, but. Or at least that's what the Bruins fans will say. Hartford Whaler fans will now kill me for saying that they're the same market as the Boston Bruins. But
Guys, I made Julie disappear.
Julia's
Yeah.
yes, there she
Charlie
is.
Zalapsky was my favorite, but anyway.
Zarly Zalaski. I won the this is the last thing I'll say because this makes no sense, but I won the Stratomatic Championship, a Stratomatic Stanley Cup with the Hartford Whalers back when. So I've always had a real good feeling for that team. I've always loved that team.
Shane Churla.
Yeah, there you go. 3-1-3. Okay, so we hope you guys enjoyed the Hockey Buzzcast. We hope Julie's okay.
I thought I had a Hartford Whalers shirt readily accessible, but I do not.
You don't have a Hartford Whalers shirt readily accessible?
I know. I thought it was actually right there because I thought it was still in my suitcase, but it must be in the laundry.
I have a Chris Pronger jersey somewhere, but anyway.
Oh yeah, no. So Julie, you're a match game fan. I'm interested in one game tonight. It'll be blank.
Ooh, that was good, Eck.
There you
High
go.
five on that one, buddy.
Thanks. Boom.
I am interested in the Ducks and the Kings. Josh, I'm not that funny. Come on.
Sorry.
Wait.
And now X disappeared.
I'm interested in both games.
Of
Which is
all
my-
the times you can't think of something to say, Julie, come on.
Well, they're both really good games.
I'm going there. So
Oh, you got up.
There you go.
how about that?
Well done.
Fine.
Wow.
Check it out. Right there.
Vintage.
Hi, Eklund, sort of. Best wishes, Kevin Deneen. There it is.
Mine just has the whale on the front.
Yeah, there you go. So this is I love this jersey. You know, the cool thing about this jersey too is that you could make it like if you had a team from like say like Evander, Illinois, you could be the Evander Whalers, or if you were a team from Montreal, you could be the Montreal Whalers, and you could do a lot with this whale
Nice.
letter.
The only extinct item I have is this. But anyway.
Well, the Binghamton Whalers actually used the same jersey.
I did. They donated a B, right? I mean, that thing is complete. That's right. It's a B. That is the by far, Mike, the most versatile letter. Anyway, all right. I think that's all. So, Julie, we don't know what game tonight's games.
No, I said Anaheim, LA
Oh,
was
yeah.
the game that I'm looking forward to tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one.
And the trouble is that I am also interested in the Pittsburgh and New York games. So I think it's a win-win tonight. I mean,
think,
at this point in the playoffs, how can it not be?
yeah.
Crosby gets his goal tonight.
Crosby gets his goal. All right, there's your prediction, Josh. I think Anaheim comes back with a win tonight, a big win, and in a big way. My prediction is Anaheim will take this game out, and this will really confuse things and complicate things, because no one thinks they will win. But I think this is their night. Anaheim is, and you know what's really exciting is to hear how loud that building is and how hockey in California has arrived. You know, it's just one of these things. It's like it's incredible. That building was so loud. It made you want to hop on a plane and go out to Disneyland and watch one of these games, because it's really it is funny when you drive to Anaheim Stadium too. There's a big sign above the road that says, you know, Anaheim Stadium this way and Disneyland this way. It literally is a fork in the road. So but that's not very interesting. We'll talk to you later. Guys, thanks so much, Josh. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Kevin, wherever you are. Kevin Allen joined us in the beginning and had to go because he got a very important phone call and never returned. So hopefully he's okay.
Must have been good.
Must have been a really good phone call. So maybe we'll find out about that on USA Today shortly, or check out his tweets and see if he's alive. Remember, guys, without the buzz,
It's just hockey.
talk to you soon.